I've got to hand it to Compulsion Games for the bright idea of setting Contrast in 1920s Paris. The famous City of Lights is an ideal location for a platformer that plays with shadows in such creative and interesting ways. Seeing this beautiful, stylized world from the perspective of a young girl's imaginary friend gives it a wonderfully dreamlike quality. Contrast doesn't always make the best use of its ideas, but when it does, it's a treat.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Vincenzo's Theater of the Unreal.
Amid the mixture of 3D and 2D platforming is an emotional story of young Dee Dee's bumbling father attempting to find success and win back her showgirl mother. How? With a risky deal with violent mobsters and a traveling illusionist. Naturally. The adults come off as a little hammy in a vaudevillian sort of way, but Dee Dee's performance is more human and relatable.
Did you know the circus is in town? It's Daddy's circus. He says it's gonna be the biggest thing ever. Except he always says stuff like that, and then something goes wrong.
There's a somewhat bizarre turn at the last second that reduces the childlike wonder of it, but getting there is no less charming.
Now promise me you'll be a good girl while I'm out singing.
I promise.
No sneaking out this time.
As Dee Dee's imaginary friend, you can only see the shadows and hear the voices of the real people she interacts with, and they become part of some unique level design. Having the power to slip between the 3D world and hopping from shadow to shadow in 2D opens up some very clever puzzling possibilities. For example, manipulating this light source to put shadows right where they need to be is a really interesting idea. There are particularly affecting moments when you're platforming over the shadows of Dee Dee's quarreling parents, and some fun scenes that take place in a broken down amusement park. Control is often a little tricky, since a wrong step can abruptly knock you out of the 2D shadow plane. There's no penalty for falling to your death though, so experimentation is what it's all about. However, it only really hints at how complex jumping between the real world and shadow world could have been. The standout of this excellent circus section has you playing the part of a princess who must continually rescue her incompetent rescuer in a shadow puppet play as Dee Dee's father narrates. It's a concept that could have sustained its own 2D platformer, and it's over too quickly. It's hard to say whether Contrast looks better in its minimalist silhouettes or in full 3D, but it never looks ordinary. On PC and PlayStation 4, the texture of the stone streets pops out as it glistens in the moonlight. I did notice some surprising frame rate dips in the outdoor environments on the PlayStation 4, especially as I wandered around wishing I had a map to direct me to my next objective. Contrast shadow play is enchanting, but the spell is broken midway through its roughly 5 hours when the puzzles start relying on cliché ideas like moving boxes onto buttons to hold doors open. I mean, come on, at least put a heart on the box. Next to strikingly beautiful platforming magic like this, carting crates from point A to point B feels so pedestrian. Picking up crates is also where Contrast is at its glitchiest. At one point, a crate I dropped down a hole one too many times just refused to respawn, and I had to restart a whole level. Contrast is a game full of heart, beauty, and at least a few excellent puzzles. It's at its best when it marries its poignant story to its platforming, and at its weakest when it's about moving boxes. But it rarely goes very long without showing us something worth playing. For more on Contrast, IGN is the place to be. Here's a little more gameplay to remember it by.
Suddenly, a giant spider jumped out of the shadows and attacked her. She ran and climbed and jumped and climbed, but the giant spider was very good at climbing too. It had 8 legs and the princess only had 2.